All right, what's going on, everybody? J Myrex, ultrawest.com. Back again with another stream. Man, so much to talk about. First of all, I want to say thank you, everybody that's been, communicating with me on the MPC X or MPC comparison test and whatnot that we've been doing. It's been really interesting to see the different ideas, the different thoughts, the different, just the different things that people have been saying as we've been doing these tests. And, mind you, this is a really early part of this testing phase, but I really appreciate the comments and the discussion. It's definitely interesting for me to see all the feedback. So I appreciate y'all, and I want to keep this going. I know some of you guys don't like doing comparisons and shootouts and all that stuff. And, I've gotten definitely some feedback from people like, yeah, just make music, whatever, it doesn't matter. I want to discuss that today. I want to discuss that and a couple more things. So, if you got a little time, let's chop it up. Definitely, if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please feel free to drop them in the chat as we go along. But yeah, like I said, I appreciate all y'all that's been rolling with me so far, and hopefully you're getting some value out of what we've been displaying and what we're talking about in this conversation, because I think it is an important topic. So first thing first, the comparisons, right? I got some flack from it. I won't say I got a lot of flack from it, but I definitely got flack for doing the comparisons. I got accused of kind of like drawing out just a negative train of thoughts and a non-productive discussion around things like converters and things like sound quality. So let me clear the air with that. Okay. So first thing first, I just, as you probably have guessed, I just recently got the MPC X SE. I previously had the MPC One for about 2 years now. So I wasn't new to the platform, just new to the MPC X SE in my studio. Obviously, you can see back there, I have a 4000. I've had that for almost 10 years now, and I've been using previous MPCs for quite some time. You can check this channel. This channel actually has one of the earliest MPC 4000 videos on YouTube. You can check it back. Like if you go back, it's one of the earliest MPC 4000 videos on YouTube. So we've been talking about this MPC topic for a minute, and like I started my channel on MPC, so I have an opinion. And I've acquired workflow, and I've acquired different ways of working, and I've shared a lot of that over time with you guys over this channel. Like this channel has provided different options and opportunities. Like, I provided the MPC or the Logic template for the MPC users so that you can use your Logic as a 16-part multi-temporal instrument with your MPCs and machine. I did that years ago before a lot of this stuff could really host VSTs and whatnot. So we've been doing this for a minute. I'm not going to stop talking about MPCs. I'm not going to stop doing comparison testing. I'm not going to stop doing any of this stuff, to be honest. Like, this is an important topic to me because a lot of people use MPCs. A lot of people have different ideas on how they want to create music using grooveboxes, and I want to explore those topics because I've been an MPC user and a groovebox user for a long time, and I enjoy it, and I enjoy the community, so I enjoy the discussion. So it's like, okay, why do we do these comparisons? We do these comparisons because it is important that when you are doing a test or when you're trying to define a mix or a sound in your studio, it is important to start with a reference when you're tuning your room, when you are trying to get your sound right, when you get your speakers, some call them reference monitors, when you get your near fields or whatever your reference speakers are, you use reference content to begin to test and see where your sound is and how your sound is in your room as a reference point before you start to deal with your own mix. So the purpose of playing, in this case, a MPC 4000, is using the MPC 4000 as a sonic reference for what we're discussing as to be the sound of the MPC X SE. And it's important to reference. This is not about old versus new. This is not about everything must sound like the MPC 4000, 3000, 2000 XL60, none of that. It's not about any of that at all. I happen to have a 4000, which is a 24-bit 96K device. It is an MPC. So that is what I'm choosing to use as a reference point when we have this discussion. I think it's a fair reference point considering that the modern MPCs also are capable of 24-bit. So that's why I use it. Does it mean that the only valid sound is an MPC 4000? Absolutely not. But I think it's a very solid reference. It's a sound that is known. It is a sound that I know specifically in my studio because I've used it for a long time. So I will use that as a reference when I'm starting to discuss the sound qualities of something new. It's the same thing I would do when I'm mixing. I will reference a old song, or not even just an old song, but a song that is within the same genre that may be older than the music I'm working on, but I will use that as a reference point to see where I stand against that reference point. So it's been very interesting to see how people are frustrated with the comparisons when realistically, as a music producer, I expect that you would be referencing your music against other music to see where your music stands sonically. Not just to be saying like, okay, well, do I sound like this other producer? But realistically, is to see how does my music compare sonically to this other work of music. That's what I believe is that's the difference really between like the professional producer and the amateur producer in the end, is their ability to reference and be honest with themselves about where they stand against a reference. Because a person that can listen to a reference and say, I'm not there, is willing to challenge themselves and say, okay, that's one opportunity or that's one benchmark that I can use. How can I get close to that benchmark? That's a challenge. Amateur producer will say, I got everything I need. It doesn't matter what it sounds like. You know, I could just keep doing what I do with this. No problem. Don't reference anything. Don't compare yourself to anything. Just make music, and doesn't matter if it actually sonically compares, competes, or whatever. Doesn't matter. Just make music. That's an amateur or hobbyist mindset. I think ultimately I just don't come from that mentality in the end, because I've had to use references so much in my career. When I receive a brief from a company like, hey, we need something in this domain, it needs to sound like this. They give you a reference material, and then you use that to start to build your music. And then that gives you something to compare and say, okay, am I going in the right direction when I reference? So it is a very professional thing to do. I don't think us as music producers should run away from the concept of referencing, even if it means referencing our drum machine against another drum machine just to see where it stands. I think that's a fair thing. It's a realistic thing to do to keep yourself honest. So that's the point of this. That's the point of doing these references where we play one and then we play another. It's a reference point. It gives you an opportunity to compare and contrast, because if I just play one instrument and don't give you a reference point, then you don't know if it's actually sonically superior, inferior in any frequency range. You don't know if it's sonically superior in terms of transient handling and distortion and clipping and all these other things that create sound in it. You don't know where you are as far as the mix is concerned because you don't have a reference. So that's why we do this. I wanted to get that clear because I think a lot of people take this whole like comparison thing as like, oh, you're just trying to like make everybody feel bad, or you're trying to like make everything about sounding like the old MPCs. Not at all. Not a music producer. So interference here. Let's see here. So that was the first thing that I wanted to really wake up here. Second thing, you know, I actually want to get some feedback from you guys because it's very interesting to hear some of the ideas that y'all have about how to get around some of the shortcomings of the MPC One specifically, and some of the ways that you guys are managing, or like more so like, I'll say it like this. The feedback that I've gotten from you guys around like, you know, why I got the MPC X and what I could have done as an alternative have been pretty interesting. So one of the things that has been said a lot is, hey, well, if you only got the MPC X because of MIDI and audio interfacing and IO, then what you could have done is you could have just hooked up class compliant audio interfaces and class compliant MIDI interfaces to your one, and that would have solved the problem. That is a very interesting suggestion. And I want to explore that a bit more. Now, I've hooked up class compliant audio interfaces to my MPC One before. I'm not new to that. I know that I did it once it was available. So I tried it. So I know what it's about. It's an interesting configuration, and I'm glad that Akai offers that ability. From my perspective, that option presents some new questions, I should say. Okay, so the first question is, okay, if I connect a class compliant audio interface to my MPC, am I now introducing another layer of processing and conversion that creates more latency? Now, I already know the answer to this. The answer is absolutely. When you connect audio interfaces to an MPC, it definitely increases latency. Now, it's only by a little bit. So the audio interfaces introduce another 128 samples or 2.9 milliseconds of latency in front of the output of the MPC. That can be meaningless if you're working completely in the box. It starts to become a problem when you are not working completely in the box. So I think that's something we need to explore. what are the challenges with introducing more latency to a system like the MPC that is designed to be a standalone system that should have essentially no latency except for whatever the nominal latency is normally coming out the outs that are connected to the board. That's not a reason why I would buy MPC in the end. I would not buy MPC if the idea was that I needed to hook another audio interface up to it just to use it in the capacity that I want to use it in. So I'm wondering now why other people are using the MPC. Now, I understand that workflow is very personal. Everybody has a different workflow. Everybody has different ways that they like to work. But my question becomes, if you are going to hook up an external audio interface and an external MIDI interface to an MPC so that you can then run those to other hardware and other audio interfaces, my question becomes, why not just use a laptop with that same configuration? That's the real question, because, I mean, the size of laptops, the portability of laptops, the power of a laptop, far, far superior to the MPC that can only run 8 plug-in instruments and 8 audio tracks. If I bring a laptop, even if I pay the same, let's compare the MPC Live. If I buy a laptop, a Mac laptop, the same price as the MPC Live today, the amount of power that I can get and the size far outweighs the power of the MPC. So then if the thing is, oh, if I need more outs, I just need to hook up a class compliant audio interface and a class compliant MIDI interface to this, and then I can have all the outs. I can do that with the laptop too. It's the same thing at the end of the day. And if you're one that has used your DAW for some time, you should know your key commands to a degree where you can work pretty quickly in your favorite DAW. No question about that. So that's why I have to ask the question. And I want to hear back from you. You guys can like comment in the chat. If you watch this video on like a repeat or like a rebroadcast, then just leave a comment. But I want to know, why do you have an MPC? Those of you that have it, why do you have an MPC? Because it seems to me that there's some other reasons that go beyond just the standalone nature of an MPC. And I think that is an important thing to consider, because I'm pretty floored that so many people are okay with taking a standalone MPC and then creating a situation where that MPC now becomes tethered to potentially 2 powered devices, depending on what device you get. Like it could be, if you're using a higher end audio interface, usually those have some type of power supply as well. And then, I mean, MIDI interfaces, you can find plenty of MIDI interfaces that are powered over USB, but some of the higher end audio interfaces definitely have some type of external power supply. So then you're creating a scenario now where your MPC requires at least one more additional powered device in order to actually do what you want it to do. That makes me curious. Is it now really not about the standalone nature of the MPC at all? Because to me, that sounds like it's not the modern qualification of a standalone, because that definitely sounds like it requires you to be in a studio environment. That does not sound portable. That does not sound like it is very standalone. It sounds like it's very dependent and tethered to a lot of other things in order for it to accommodate your needs in the studio. So I would like to know. That's something I would like to hear back from you guys. Why do you have an MPC? What is the MPC doing for you personally? For me, the main reason that I use an MPC is the MIDI handling. I think compared to a software DAW, the MPC has some of the best and most solid MIDI implementation amongst anything I've ever used. I cannot say the same thing for the modern MPCs. I haven't used it enough to be able to say it's as solid as the traditional or classic MPCs. But that is traditionally why I used the MPC, was because of the MIDI implementation. Because I actually started making beats in software. I started with FL Studio and Cakewalk, and neither one of those had amazing MIDI implementation at the time I started making music. So when I got the MPC finally and hooked up my JV 1080 rack to that, the amount of stability and just the reliability of that MIDI sold me. And I never went back until like I found Logic much later. But it's really always been about the MIDI. It's not really been about the sound of the sampler. Like when I got my first MPC, I didn't have anybody around that was talking about the sound of the MPC in that respect. Well, at least not the 2000 XL. I think the only one that had that type of regard in the sound domain was the 3000. So I did hear people talk about the sound of the 3000, but that was not the reason that I bought a 2000 XL, because I knew clearly it was not the same thing as the 3000. So literally for the majority of my career as a music producer, the MPC has been about MIDI production, because I'm a MIDI based producer as well. Like I said in the last video, I have about 5 keyboards in here. I have 4 different rack mounts, synths and samplers. The MPC is the ideal surface for that. Now, when we start connecting additional audio or MIDI interfaces, from my experience, that also creates opportunities for a little bit more instability in the end. Some of you guys may have a great time already with using a MIDI interface connected to your MPC Live, MPC One. This is not the type of additional instability or potential instability that I want to create in the setup. I want the things integrated so that I can have a very reliable, very stable setup that doesn't have glitchy, unstable MIDI at the end of the day. So that is why I use the MPC. But I want to hear from you guys. Because a lot of the feedback that I got about the sound quality and stuff, and that's not the reason I got the MPC. It's not about the sound and all that. I find it hard to believe that sound is not an issue with the MPC. Because, you know, sound and quality, when we're talking about equipment, I don't care what type of equipment you're talking about. When it has to do with making any type of content, sounds, music, video, or anything, you're gonna compare quality. It's important. I'm gonna just give you an example. If you can honestly tell me that the quality of your device doesn't matter, then let's do a quick comparison real quick. Okay, so here I am right now. Okay, what happens now if I use this camera instead? Is this camera the same quality as the previous camera that I was using? Is this camera picking up on the light and the colors in the same manner as the previous camera? Quality matters. Quality matters. And each device has different ways of handling some of the key inputs. Now, for a camera, light is the key input. So the test of a camera is its ability to pick up light and deal with light. So as you can see, this particular camera is not handling light very well, using the original camera as a reference point. The original camera is picking up the light much better. The colors are much more natural. The picture is more defined. So let's be honest, quality matters. So I don't know how, as sound people, we can sit up and say, that doesn't matter, it's just about making good music. Sure, it's about making good music, but the quality absolutely matters, and it makes a difference. Like, if you know how your equipment is responding to the key inputs, you can make better decisions. That's why it's important. It's not about comparing just the new to the old. It's really about having a reference point and understanding how your new equipment is responding to the key inputs. The key inputs for us in the audio world are the samples in the audio that we're using. How is it responding to those frequencies that are contained in that audio? That's why we do these comparisons and tests. That's why we make these comparisons, because the sound quality does matter. The quality of your equipment does matter because it changes the way that the sound may be behaving when you're making music. So I wanted to give you that quick example because I don't think any of you guys can argue with me that the previous video, the previous camera was better than this camera is for this particular scenario. I don't think you can even argue or question that. So when we do these comparisons, it's about having a real world test to check where we are and so that we understand what kind of response we're getting out of our equipment. But a lot of you guys say you don't buy MPC for sound, so then why are you buying it? That's what I want to know. If you don't buy it for sound, some of you guys will say, I'll buy it for groove. Okay, cool. That's cool as well. But then does the MPC that you have now have the groove that you want, or is it just like an acceptable groove because it says MPC? That's something you also have to understand, because if you buy a new one and you say it has a groove, does it have a better groove than Logic? Does it have a better groove than FL? Does it have a better groove than Ableton? Does it have a better groove than Machine? What does it have a better groove than, if that is your purpose? I just want to know. I want to like have this discussion for real. I don't want you to just throw stuff at me and say, no, don't talk about that. Just make music. Just make music. It doesn't matter. Like, because I saw some of you guys get real ugly with people that said they choose sound quality. Not all of you, but some of you guys got real ugly with some of the folks that said, hey, I chose sound quality in the end because, you know, I didn't want just a computer that says MPC on it, but I wanted something that had a good sonic quality that I could use to communicate the music that I'm working on. Just because someone says that doesn't mean that they're dependent on that machine or they're using the machine as a crutch or anything like that. Especially when you know what that particular machine does. When you know what that machine does and you can use it with some type of precision, then you know exactly why you're using it. You know exactly what it can do and how you can leverage it to communicate the ideas that you have musically. It's not just about having a crutch, but it's about knowing the equipment and knowing exactly what it can do and when it's appropriate and when it's not appropriate. I'm gonna go to this chat. I've talked for about 30 minutes now. Like, I don't want to monologue, but I wanted to start the discussion because some of the stuff you guys been saying has been very interesting, but I want to know from you guys firsthand, like, why do you have an MPC? What did you get it for? What's the purpose? Let me know. I'm gonna get to some of those other questions in a second, but let me just check on the MPC topic first. Two Papa says the X is basically a CPU doll with the MIDI controller attached to it, kind of. To a degree, I would say so. I would say so, especially when you start talking about connecting an additional audio interface, MIDI interface, whatever. Then it really, it's no different from using a computer. And then, as we did in the other examples, we kind of looked at the headroom. The headroom is very similar to working in a DAW environment. So, yeah, it's like a computer in the end. So it's an interesting situation, especially, like I said, once you start connecting external devices that are traditionally designed to go with a computer, then it's like, well, you're using it as a computer, not really as an MPC in the end. Tupapa says, I use the PC as a sound module, sample from Spectrasonics, Complete, etc., sampled into an ASR 10 for coloration, then go into the MPC One for further sampling, sequencing, and storage. So you're treating your sounds before you go into the MPC. So I think it sounds like, from what I can understand, if I had to make a synopsis of this, you appreciate the overall quickness of the workflow and maybe the storage capabilities of the MPC One in the end. Doesn't sound like you're using it for sound because you're generating your sound from all these other things. So it's not about the sound. Doesn't sound like it's about the internal instruments either, because you wouldn't be using Complete and Spectrasonics or nothing like that if Fabric and everything else that's in the MPC was good enough. So it sounds like between the ASR 10, Complete, and Spectrasonics, you got your sound locked in, and then you're just using the MPC to sequence and save the music, which is cool. Everybody has their own preferences and workflow. I just want to know, because like some of the stuff you guys have said has really surprised me in terms of like your willingness to basically turn the MPC into a computer to in order to work and get what you need out of it. That tells me that there's other reasons that people have MPCs. So I would like to know. Dope Beat Dan says, the last MPC I bought was a renaissance. For me, it's the ecosystem and familiarity along with classic 16-pad layout that makes it appealing to make music with. Great points to ponder, Ultras. Appreciate the feedback. Yeah, I mean, listen, if you were a previous MPC user and the new one comes out and you no longer have your old MPC, makes sense. Like, hey, I'm just going for familiarity. Like, I know the MPC platform, I know the basic workflow. So the new one makes sense for you to use. If you don't have access to your old one and you still want an MPC, that's the way to go. Makes sense. MPC Canvas says, I got the X expecting it to have similar sounds to the older ones. My idea was not to put knock plug-in on my mix to get it to knock well, to be honest. Well, doesn't have the sound of the old MPCs, so that's probably disappointing. If you expected it to sound like the old MPCs and it doesn't, now you have to figure out how to make it sound the way you want it, because it's not necessarily going to sound like the old MPCs. Now, listen, I know a lot of you guys say, well, if you put the SP1200 mode on, or if you put the 3000 mode on, or the 60 mode on, then it's going to sound like whatever device. I think that if you don't use a reference point, then you'll believe that any of those emulations sound like any of those devices you're talking about. I think a lot of you guys that say that don't tend to do a critical reference of the previous machines to really make a conclusion that the SP1200 mode or the MPC 3000 mode or the 60 mode sounds like what it says it sounds like. It's important. It's important that you know, so that you don't just fool yourself into saying, yeah, I got it. It sounds like the SP1200. I had to get an SP1200 because I saw a lot of plugins. I saw a lot of different things. Yo, thank you for the donation out here. I'm gonna get to you, Dwayne. Thank you for the donation. Appreciate you. I'm gonna get to your comment in a second. But I had to buy a SP1200 because I wanted to know for certain that the emulations that I'm hearing in these different machines, like the Machine and the now the Akai MPC One and the X. When it says SP1200, does it really sound like the SP1200? From my experience with the actual SP1200, and you might say, well, you got the Rossum one. That's not the OG SP1200. It's based on the same component. So it's about as SP1200 as I probably will be able to get. It's built by the OG Dave Rossum. So it's about as SP1200 as I can get today without buying a super old SP1200. But that being said, none of the emulations that I've used in any platform really sound like the SP1200 in the end. SP1200 has a very specific sound, very specific and interesting behaviors when you pitch the sounds, especially. So none of that stuff really sounds like the SP1200 in the end. So I think that's an important thing to like really check yourself and make sure that you've referenced before you say, oh, just use this or just use that mode so it can sound like that machine. A lot of that stuff is marketing, is gimmicks, and is playing on your ignorance or you're not having a reference point in the end. So you got to be careful with that. Don't allow these companies to just slap a title on something and tell you like, it sounds like this. Do the actual comparison, use a reference, because otherwise you're going to fool yourself into believing that you have something that you don't have. And then you'll get complacent. And that's the worst thing, is for you to get complacent thinking that you have something when you don't really have it. Let me get to Mr. Dwayne's message here. So appreciate it. Again, Dwayne, thank you for your donation here. Dwayne says, MPCs today are made for hobbyists and not professional. Akai early on with Mr. Lin was working close with musicians in the industry. Prince was one of the first artists to use the Lin Drum 1. Facts. Yeah, that's an important note too. I think the market has shifted. The market has shifted a lot. So it's not just about the professional anymore. So I understand Akai has to like really cater to a wide audience. They're not just catering to this professional anymore. So a lot of the people that, you know, they also sell products to don't necessarily have the knowledge or experience to be able to say what's good or what's a quality sound versus what's not a quality sound. Now, like I said, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the MPC X is a horrible machine. I've not said that. And I've also not been one of these guys that attribute the sound that we're getting from the X to converters or anything else like that. I'm still referencing, and I understand I'm hearing certain differences, and the synopsis that I have right now is that a lot of the differences have to do with the software and the DSP and the way that DSP is handling the sounds. It is handling them in the way like a DAW would. So that's what I'm hearing so far. So a lot of this like distortion and clipping handling, a lot of that has to do with the internal DSP in the end. Not necessarily a converter thing, but to Dwayne's point, I agree. These products are not necessarily built like old professional units that were made specifically for this professional type. Man, K Carter, appreciate it. I appreciate the donation here. I appreciate you for sure. Thank you so much, fam. Appreciate you. Let's see here. Just getting back into this chat. MPC Canvas says, I wanted sound quality, but I noticed it wasn't what I expected. I do like the workflow. Workflow is amazing. I knocked out a quick beat on, I've knocked out several very quick beats on the MPC X since I got it. It is an amazing device to just quickly work. Don't get me wrong. Like, it absolutely is super quick. It reminded me of when I first, once I first came into my own with the MPC, and when I used to like back in the day on the 2000 XL, and especially when I had the 2500, how I used to just fly and make like gang of beats like in a session. I would make like 3-4 beats when I would sit down. Every time I sat down, just like 3-4 beats, because I could just run through ideas and have all those sequences and sessions up real quick and kind of like go back in between them. So it reminded me of that workflow. So the workflow was dope. Dwayne, appreciate you again. You make more money selling the hobbyist. Black Lion mods wouldn't have to exist if Akai would do the right thing first. Well, yeah, I mean, that's real. That's real. If they would actually put the emphasis on the sound, there would be no requirement for a Black Lion audio mod. It just wouldn't be a market for it. So I wish they would like really focus on that part as well, so that it is a sound that really references well against some of the classics that they're known for, because a lot of what sells the MPC is their, somebody else said it, like nostalgia, but also just their reputation. They are, they've been the leader in this groove box domain for such a long time, and they set the bar. Like Akai set the bar for what a sampling drum machine should be. So we should be looking at what the bar is and like comparing the new stuff to that bar, because they literally set that bar way back in the day. And so many amazing songs and music was made off of that. So it's like, you expect that their new stuff also is at that same quality level and is hitting that same bar of excellence that they were known for years. So yes, sir. Yes, sir. K Carter, I appreciate you, fam. Thank you so much, fam. K Carter says, originally MPC stands for MIDI Production Center. Now it stands for Music Production Center. I always use the 4K for the sequencer. That's a fact. That's what I remember MPC standing for, is MIDI Production Center. So that's a fact. That's what sold me on it. It was the MIDI Production Center. It was the hub for all the MIDI in the studio, and it allows you to make music by yourself without having a whole bunch of other people in the room. You could play all the parts and make all the parts work off of MIDI. And that's why the original ones all had 4 MIDI outs, because they were literally MIDI sequencers. So yeah, that's a fact. Our Jabberenda the Benz says, I purchased the MPC for nostalgia. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I get that. I come from a computer background, so software was always easier. Yep. Room at the top, bless up. Appreciate you, fam. Let's see, MPC Canvas. I wanted sound quality, but I noticed it wasn't what I expected. I do like the workflow. Yes, sir. Room at the top says, even the MPC 500 actually had a great sound with its onboard effects running through a tube, and it really hits. That's really interesting, actually. The 500 definitely has a very unique sound. It definitely has a punchy sound. It definitely has a very prominent mid-range. I just couldn't get with the workflow on the 500. I tried so hard. I tried to make that work. During the early part of the pandemic, I was using it, trying to like do a little DAW-less, like a small DAW-less setup. Yeah, that wasn't for me. I had to let it go finally. But sound-wise, it definitely has a sound. Like I would agree with you. Now, does it sound like the 3000 or anything like that? No, it has its own sound, but the sound is definitely unique, and it definitely is a punchy sound. So I agree with that. Let's see. Dope Beat Dance says, whatever elicits inspiration is key to the gear. Word. Dre says, I think Standalone somewhat overrated. I use MPC Key 37 with Cubase. The current MPC are great, but they are not as powerful as my PC DAW. I mainly use MPC for drums and sampling. Word. Yeah, I mean, listen. Standalone, everybody got different situations. I mean, I get the Standalone from the perspective of like a lot of people now that are buying these things may have a day job or something like that where they're sitting in front of a computer all day. So if you sit in front of a computer all day, you may not want to come back home and sit in front of a computer to work on your hobby, your music, your passion. You may not want to do anything like that. So then the standalone becomes a great opportunity for you to escape from like the computer and sitting in front of the computer and doing something that feels mundane. So I get that part. That makes sense. And I think if that's your situation, then standalone has a lot of value. I think for a lot of professionals that are in between, I know a lot of professionals that won't use an MPC at all these days because it's just not it's not the right thing for their workflow today, because they got to churn out stuff quick and they got to do a lot of revisions, and working on a standalone machine does not give them the flexibility to make the revisions and do things that they need to do in order to get their stuff done. So I think it depends on your use case and your scenario. Rocky S says, hey, bud, question, MPC X or any 3.0, how can you jump 9 through 16 channels on mixer without swiping the finger? Thank you. Not sure if I understand what you mean by that. Maybe we can rephrase that a bit. How can you jump 9 through 16 channels? Are you talking about gestures? Like, I'm just not understanding what the question is. You're trying to like, are you trying to jump to like the second 8 channels quickly? I just don't get it. So maybe you can restate that question. Byron Brand says, my MPC Live 2, and record all hardware and VSTs in its audio. Word. To Papa, yes, it's a hybrid hookup, best of both worlds. Dope. Room at the top studio says, to me, the new MPCs are an iPad with physical controls. A laptop is more powerful with the DAW of choice, and it's cheaper. That's facts. Also considering, even the newer iPads, like some of the iPads are now at M series chips now, right? So MPC X or none of that stuff is not competing with an M chip. So yeah, I mean, it's probably closer to like a series chip now, as far as like when we're talking about the MPC. So it is kind of like a iPad with a dedicated controller interface and audio interface, which is fine. I don't have a problem with the iPad. I mean, if you watch this channel for years, like I love the iPad. I'll get down on the iPad. I'll do stuff directly just with an iPad, no problem. And that's why I said that's why it's been interesting to see you guys say like, yeah, I'm cool with hooking up an audio interface and a MIDI interface to the MPC One. But when I said that's what you need to do when you use an iPad, back in the day, y'all was like, no, I'm not doing all that. That's too much stuff. I just want to take the iPad and go. So it's like, which one is it? Because I got a lot of pushback from the iPad, and I was really like, that was years ago, and I was suggesting the same thing. All you need to do is hook up a class compliant audio interface and a class compliant MIDI interface to it, and you got a whole system that you can do with whatever you want, and you can take it anywhere, and you can pull up all these different samplers and instruments and plugins and whatnot, all on the iPad. And I told you guys this years ago. And it's very interesting to see that you guys are cool with working like that, but it just needs to say MPC. Because when it said iPad and Beatmaker, it was like, I don't know about that. When it said iMachine, it was like, I don't know about that. There's even a MPC software, obviously, on the iPad. Now, that doesn't work quite as well as like a Beatmaker or something like that, but you get my drift. Like, it's interesting to see that the problem was not so much, I have to hook up all these external things to make this thing work. It was really more so some other intangibles that we should discuss now. And that's why I'm asking, because clearly there's a disconnect here. Let's see here. Tupapa says the MPC 60 SB1200 mode is like or close to, but in reality it's not. A lot of people would be incredibly surprised if you were to listen to the real and the emulation side by side. Absolutely, they're not the same at all. And I think we should be careful with saying that they're the same. They are not the same. They don't sound the same. The fact that people say that they're the same, it just comes, it's kind of born out of not having a reference point. And you could say that then that's, you know, ignorance in the end, because you don't know, you don't have the knowledge of. So then you can say, yes, it sounds like that. But I think if you actually do a real reference, then you would see, no, SB1200 doesn't sound like that. That's kind of like, they kind of took some of the ideas and thoughts and put it into that emulation. But I've told you guys on this channel before, be careful with emulation, because emulation is someone's perspective on how that machine works and how they would use it. It's their perspective on what makes that machine sing in the end. That may not be your experience with that machine in real life. It's their perspective. It's the coder, the product manager, all the other people that work on the software development team. It's their perspective. Like, they do some R&D and they might do some testing from their perspective, but you have to consider sometimes they're just testing like very bare bones, like high level, and if they're testing something that they haven't really used and don't really know the sound of, like if you get a coder or developer that gets a SB1200 for the first time and pops a sample in and just kind of understands, oh, that's what it sounded like when I put a sample in, then they don't really know that, oh, actually what people on the SB1200 used to do was pitch the samples up, you know, this many semitones, and then sample it in and then pitch it back down. And that was what the sound was. So then when we start getting all these artifacts and stuff, it's really about the sound when it's pitched. It's not so much the sound when you just sample directly in, because it's not so, you know, fuzzy or like bit reduced as you would think when you sample directly into a SB1200. It's not like that at all. So I think that's an interesting thing in itself. It's like just the perspective and the use case and your familiarity with this product. And I think when you're talking about a emulation, again, just be careful. You need to, if you're a serious producer at a certain point, you need to like really dig into like your knowledge of sounds and your knowledge of instruments, and so that you really know and have command over what you're saying, not just reaching for things because you say, oh, it says that, so that therefore it must be that. I'm guilty of that. You know, before I actually had a real Rhodes, you know, I thought the Rhodes in the Motif ES way back in 2004 was like the best Rhodes ever. It sounded so dope. Like, oh, the Rhodes on this is so much better than all the other keyboards. It definitely sounded better than what I was getting from most of the JV1080 patches. Definitely sounded better than what I was getting from the Triton. The Motif Rhodes sounded like the Rhodes, and it said Rhodes. It said 73, vintage 74, whatever it said as the patch. It said all that, and I thought it was the dopest and best Rhodes until I got a real Rhodes. Once heard I heard a comedian say that the Chrysler 300 looked like the Phantom until the real Phantom pulls up. Same thing. SB1200 mode sound like SB1200 mode until you get the real thing. The Motif Rhodes sound like the real Rhodes until you get the real Rhodes. So be careful with the emulations. Let's see here. Dope Beat Dan says that Kai needs to make a true flagship that includes the sound with the whole package, but it seems like they're profiting just fine at the moment. I don't think anybody can afford to pay for like the real thing at this point. Because even if you think about, we talked about this in one of the other threads, but if you look at how much the MPC 4000 used to cost when they started to do like the whole modular MPC thing, like, you know, they started that modular MPC thing with the 2000 and they kind of did that until the 4000. But if you look at the base model of the 4000, it was like $2,200 just for like a very bare bones one that didn't have outs, that didn't have like the internal drives and other storage, like, and the capacity was limited and all that. Like, it was very expensive just for the base model. And then if you wanted to get like the fully blown out one with all the outs and all the storage capacity and all the drives and everything else that the 4000 had, it was $4,000. So, you know, that was 2002. So think about it now, like, okay, can anybody afford to pay for what it would really cost for them to do like a full blown MPC with all the bells and whistles like that you guys truly want? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that you got to play a different game. I've been a product manager for 5 years. I know the game that you have to play with that. It's not just about doing the most expensive feature-rich product that you can do. That's not business. Business doesn't work like that. So I get it, and I don't think that they will do anything that really meets the expectation of the professional today, because the professional is not their main customer. They're selling to way more people than professionals today. Dwayne says the drums on the MPC 2000, my goodness. Yeah, they definitely have a sound to it. The 2000 definitely has the punch, and the mid-range is very, very strong on that. K Carter says the 4K is the only MPC that can record and play back 16 or 24-bit, and it's the only one that has real-time groove previews. Well, that's a fact. That's a fact. 24-bit 96K in standalone, mind you. That's another thing where you guys were talking about, hey, you could just hook up a audio interface to your MPC One and get more outs. Well, guess what? When you do that, you're confined to 24-bit 44.1. So you won't be able to do 96K if you use an audio interface connected directly to your MPC, because it says it must be set at 44.1, and it's going to have an automatic audio buffer size of 128 samples. So already we're not talking about the same thing as a 4000 at all. Like the 4000 can do 2496. So, and that's in standalone without a additional audio interface connected to it. So like, you know, we should definitely just be aware they're not the same thing. They don't do exactly the same thing. Dwayne, okay, blah, 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 cool. Room at the Top Studio says the MPC Finder workflow is similar to the 3000. The XL chopping sequencing is the same as the 3K, and the shift is the same as the XL. The 3K is the most recent MPC. The 3K is the most recent MPC I got, and I didn't need the manual. Listen, that 500, not for me, not for your boy here. Not for your boy. It did not work. I couldn't get with it. And to be honest, I'm not really a huge fan of the 3000 workflow. It's not the 3000 is not my favorite. If we just talk about workflow, right? 3000 is not my favorite MPC to work on at all. I don't necessarily like the stop and go nature of the 3000. I would say in that regard, the 500 is better in terms of workflow than the 3000 for me personally, because just simple things on the 3000 you have to stop the sequencer to do, which I can't stand that. I can't stand that. Every time I need to do some operation, I have to stop the sequencer in order to get to different screens on the 3000. That already is a non-starter for me. So I don't think that they're quite the same for me. I started on the 2000 XL, so that has a certain workflow. That's why the 4000 was a natural upgrade for me, because I started on the 2000 XL. So that's why I said this whole workflow thing is very personal, because it has to do with your frame of reference and what your expectations are in the end. I think that's what brings the comfort and like really allows you to like feel at home with something, is if it meets your expectations. So coming from my first MPC was a 2000 XL. When I hit the 4000, it was like, that's it. That does all the stuff I wanted it to do. And there's some other topics I'm gonna get into in some later videos, but I'm gonna wake up some other things that I'm sure a lot of y'all don't realize about the 4000. I'm gonna wake it up, but we still doing some testing with this other device, but I'm gonna wake it up because the 4000 had everything that I needed. So that's why it worked for me. But workflow is personal. It has to do with your expectations and your frame of reference in the end. Let me get into this chat some more. Sam, what's going on with you? Love the simplicity and limitations of the MPC Standalone. Word. Dwayne, Madlib uses the iPad today. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can use whatever you want to use as a music producer, right? You can literally use whatever. This is not about what you need to use. I'm not telling you, the purpose of this channel is not to tell you what to use. It never has been about that. We wake up stuff and talk about different tools and things that are interesting, all right? That's what it's about. K Carter, appreciate you. I appreciate the support here. K Carter asks, what programs you use to get your U sounds on the MPC? Do you use an old computer? Oh, I see. That's a good question. Do I use an old computer with access? No, I don't. I've been looking into ways to get around that, because if you don't know, Axis was an old program that was available to use for the S5000, the Z4, and the Akai MPC 4000 back in the day. And it required Windows XP to use, and it made it really easy to build programs and key maps and other interesting things that you can then transfer directly to your MPC or S series using a USB cable. Made it real simple. So 4000 was like really the first MPC that I remember that could hook up to the computer using USB. But it required access. So if you don't have a Windows XP system now, you can't use that. Today, I mean, I sample directly into the MPC 4000. I mean, I have the USB. If you format a flash drive, USB flash drive, FAT32, you can connect it directly to the MPC, and you can store sounds on and transfer sounds from the computer. And most computers can read FAT32, so that's what I use if I need to transfer sounds. Otherwise, I'm sampling directly into it. The way my setup is, I can basically sample anything into my samplers when I want to, grab the sound and keep it pushing. So if I have something on the computer, I just play it through one of my virtual channels on my Apollo. It goes directly into the MPC. I sample it, I get the sound, I'm good to go. I'm off to the races there. So good question. Good question. The Daydream Sound, what's good? What's good, fam? Appreciate you dropping by. Appreciate you. Castro Beats says, I sequenced the MV8000 with mine. Word. That's dope. So you're getting a couple different things going. So I would assume that you like the sound of the MV. So that's dope. Tupapa says, and the ASR will warm up your room in the winter. Of course, like a lot of them old machines are, yeah, the heat management is crazy. Like they definitely turn into ovens. Yeah. Let's see, room at the top says, I know what you mean with the real roads. I had to get one, emulations wouldn't do it for me. Absolutely, bro. Like once you get a real roads, you start to see how weak most emulations really are. Real roads it's just it's a different sound, and like the emulations hardly get it right. Sometimes they get some frequency ranges or some octaves right, but once you play on the real Rhodes, you can kind of feel like even just the response of like, I think it's hard to like really make a Rhodes sound and feel like a real Rhodes when they're designed to be played on like a weighted, or not a weighted, like a semi-weighted key action. Because when you play the Rhodes and you kind of see how the hammers and all that stuff responds, and the tines and all that stuff respond, and you kind of see how that's in some ways impacting the sound as well. It's like, yeah, the emulations just don't do it. They don't sound like the Rhodes, and they don't feel like the Rhodes when you play it. So like when you play it on a semi-weighted MIDI controller, it doesn't have the same sound or feel, and you end up playing things that you probably wouldn't play on the real Rhodes because it just doesn't feel that way. So yeah, it's a real thing. Let's see here. Back to this chat here. Sparkle says I have it on 32-bit Win 7. Are you talking about Axis, Sparkle? If you are, let me know. I might have to check that out, but I'm still looking at other options here. There's a couple other things you can do as well. Dre says, so if all you had was an MPC X, what analog pieces would you use to beef up the sound? Okay. If all I had was the MPC X, that's a good question. Put some more parameters around that. Budget. Give me a budget. Give me a budget here. I think that'll help. But let me kind of play with that question a bit here. So if I had say my budget was $500, right? Well, $500, I don't really have that many great options to beef the X up at 500. I think 500 is kind of like, you may as well just focus on capturing as clean of a sound as you can and use the plugins. You could buy analog mixture. $500 though, I think I wouldn't even, personally, anybody can say otherwise, but I wouldn't waste my time. Not at the $500 point. I think once you get to about 700 or so, you get some options now. So you could use something like, and I think it's important to talk about like what is warmth and like what kind of warmth we're looking for, right? Because you could say, oh, you can get like a Handsome Audio Zulu, for example. I have one of those. You may have seen it like years ago in my studio. I still have my Handsome Audio Zulu. That's an interesting device. Would I say it's a super warm sound? I think that is designed to also be paired with like a preamp, to be honest. I think you need the Zulu plus a preamp to really get the best out of that. So just like getting a Zulu by itself to warm up the sound, no. Analog heat, I've seen that thrown out. That could be an interesting option. But you only get a little bit, you only get a little bit of range out of an analog heat. You only get a little bit of range out of it. You don't get like a super wide range here. K Carter, appreciate you. I'm gonna get to your question in a moment. So I think realistically, where we're at now, we got to put it in perspective. I'm not buying something that's going to be like inferior just because it can like kind of warm up or fuzz up the sound a little bit on a $2,500 device. Let's keep that perspective, right? You paid $2,500 for the MPC X. It doesn't make sense to buy something inferior at that point or like super low end to warm up the sound. So I think your best bet is to like probably just focus on, if you don't have another, say 1,500 or so to spend, I would say don't even bother, because realistically, you can do a lot on the computer. I don't think that the MPC X is like irredeemable at all. That's not what I'm saying. I've never said that. I think that you just got to know what it's giving you. And then I would focus like on just doing what I know to do in Logic, using my plugins and whatnot, and using the things that I understand can like enhance the frequencies that are missing. But if you have about 1,500 now, now we talking. Now we can look at some interesting preamps and things of that nature to warm things up a bit. Depends on, let's go shopping here. Let's do that. Let's go shopping. Should I share my screen? Yeah, y'all mind if I share my screen? Let me share my screen here. Let me see. Let me do the screen share. Here we go. Let's do the screen share. Let's see. Can y'all see my screen? I don't think y'all can see my screen yet. Boom. I think now there you can see it. Here we go. So, all right, cool. So you should be able to see my screen now. Let me get that cracking a little bit. We're doing this in real time, so sorry for the, yeah, here we go. So if y'all can see my screen, let's take a trip to one of my favorite stores here. Let's go to Vintage King, right? Let's go there. All right, so we're at Vintage King now. So what I would probably look at, or maybe you can go 500 series. 500 series, we're gonna have a different conversation with 500 series, because then we gotta get the power supply. We gotta figure out, you know, how we want to set up and all that stuff. So I'm gonna keep it simple, and let's just look at some preamps here. Let's look at like maybe preamps or channel strips. That's what I would be looking at for the MPC. Now, if we want to talk about like stereo channel processing, right? Stereo channel processing. What I would probably do, let's see if we can zoom in on this a little bit. Let's look at some channel strips first in this section. Only got one here. That's not the right one. Let's get out of that. Obviously, you know, if you want to run 8 out, something like this SSL Pure Drive, 8 outs, right? You got 8 channels. I would go for something like that, run my 8 outs through it. But look, that's the same price as your MPC. You know what I'm saying? So that already is price prohibitive, right? But I would use something like that for the 8 channels. You got 8 outs, you run 8 channels through this. Now we're talking. So I would look at something like that for 8 outs. Obviously, if you have like, if you don't have enough for that, then you can look at something like this, the quad, right? You can at least run 4. So I would look at something like this. Rack processors, right? Like SSL Pure Drive. I get 4 channels. I can at least run 4 different sounds. I can run a stereo. Like for me, this might already be enough, because realistically, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna run my stereo sounds through 1 and 2, and I'm gonna run kick and snares through 3 and 4. And that might already be enough to get a better sound for me. That's what I did in the last example. It's like stereo sounds, went through the stereo channel, and then I went kick and snare on 3 and 4. Boom. Already got an improved sound. So something like SSL Pure Drive, $13.99. I think now we're starting to cook a little bit, right? $13.99 is not too bad. It's like that's expensive, but it's not too bad. So I mean, we could play this game all day, but I mean, obviously, if you can afford, you know, something like the Rupert 5211, boom, another good option. $2,000. Only stereo though, but still a good option. So those are a couple things that I would do. Like tons of options here, but yeah, those are some things I would do. So I don't want to belabor that, but that's how my mind is thinking. I think that SSL joint, the quad, might be a really good look. I think more of you guys probably should look into that one as well, because I mean, you may not need 8 channels in the end. 4 channels might be enough for you to already get cooking and do what you need to do. But if you only have stereo, I mean, yeah, you can get something like a Fusion. Obviously, the Fusion is $2,400 as well. So I think that SSL quad might be the best of both worlds here. Obviously, you can get like a Big 6 or something like that as well. Those sorts of things could also help you. So there's a lot of options here, but that's how my mind works. I would think and go in that direction. K Carter says, I still have your Logic Pro MPC sound module template. Also use Reason as a sound module sync with the MPC or with the 4K. That's awesome, man. I appreciate you. Like, I got inspired for that workflow from Reason, actually, because that's how I used to use Reason. If you look at I have an old MPC 2500 video that's showing me using Reason as a sound module. So once I got used to that workflow, like I wanted to use Logic like that because Logic had better instruments than Reason has. So yeah, that was what inspired that for sure. Let me get back up to this real quick. Let's see. The 4000 can even resample 12-bit low sample rates that sound not exactly like any lower sample rate sampler, but a good sample. Yeah, the 4000 can do like this bit reduced sound. I play with that a lot, actually. It doesn't sound like a SP1200 at all, though. Let's get it clear. Like when you go 12-bit and 11K or whatever, it doesn't sound like a SP1200 at all. It sounds interesting and it definitely has a texture, but it's not the SP1200. Let's see. Room at the Top Studio says, I had to choose between the 3K and the 4K, grab the 3K. I still want a 4K, but it's not the top of my list of things to get for the studio. I will get one eventually, definitely before the X. Word. Dwayne says, okay, yep. Snipe Young, what's good? What's good, bro? Thanks for joining the stream. Let's see. Somebody mentioned Neve Orbit Mixer. Okay, analog heat, we got through that. Can an analog mixer with the Rupert Neve DI box give the new MPCs a better sound? I mean, an analog mixer, which analog mixer are you talking about? I'm sure you can get a different sound with an analog mixer, but it may not be a great sound. Like they don't all have great EQs. They don't all have good preamps. Some of them have noisy preamps. You might get a much noisier sound. So it depends, like which mixer are you talking about? I think if you're talking about something like someone mentioned down here, the SSL Big 6, you might get a better sound. I think those are a bit better quality mixers in the end and more flexible. So SSL Big 6 might be the thing for you. But I think just your standard like Mackie mixer or something like that, I don't know. I wouldn't mess with it. I wouldn't bother. I think something like that may not work the way you think it's going to work for you. And I've used mixers with MPCs. I think if you like a really like dirty sound, then yeah. Did my stream freeze again? Let me know if the stream froze. It looked like it froze. Man, okay, did the stream freeze or what? Yeah, it looked like I froze, y'all. Look like the stream froze. Ah, boy. Okay. Let's see here. Can I restart it? Yeah, looks like the stream froze. Okay, here we go. No, it froze on my side. So I had to restart it. Cool, appreciate y'all. No, it definitely froze on my side. Like the whole screen went blank and YouTube pretty much stopped. So appreciate y'all. Cool. Let me get back to this now. Snipe says, I don't like the way my MPC sounds going through my SSL. Which MPC are you talking about? The X? Then yeah, then there it is then. So take it from Snipe. I trust Snipe's ear. If you don't like the SSL, then that ain't the one. That ain't the one. Castro Beat says the SoundCloud. Word. So yeah, I mean, listen, I think at the end of the day, everybody's going for different things too. So we got to keep that in mind. Like we're not all going for the same sound. So I think you do have to explore and see what's going to best fit the type of music you're working on in the end. I think what works for some people doesn't work for others. Like I know people that really love and require the sound of the SP404 because that's part of the sound of the music that they're working on. MPC One or something like that wouldn't be it for them. The X wouldn't be it for them. The 4K wouldn't be it for them. The 404 is it. So it really depends on like the music. It really depends on the music you're making and like your style and like the things that you're going for creatively. I don't think there's one size fits all. And that's not what this channel is about. This channel is not about preaching a one size fits all. I can't speak to like, when you ask this question, right? When you ask this question, you cannot basically approach it from like, hey, like, what would you do? And it's like, well, realistically, I don't know what kind of music you make, right? I haven't heard your music, so I'm speaking from my perspective. But at the same time, your music might be different and might require different things that I may not be privy to. So then I'm giving you some advice that doesn't really fit the style of music that you're working on. So you got to keep that in mind as well. Yeah, so let's see. DJ Rush says Midas MR18 or the X32 works too. Yeah, I mean, that could work. Snipe, what you think about the X32 for the MPC? Have you taken it over to the church to taking your X to the church to see if the X32 work? Let me know. Let's see. CX was good with you. Appreciate you joining. Appreciate you, fam. Justin Woods, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining the channel. Thank you for, I hope you subscribe to the channel. If you're new to it, I hope you subscribe because we're going to continue doing a lot more of this type of information sharing. This is not the end. This is just the beginning. So look out for way more. Look out for way more. We're going to keep doing this. So, let's see. Snipe Young says he actually likes to freeze with the X SE on the X32. There it is then. I trust Snipe on this one. I trust Snipe on this one. So if the X sounding good with the X32, go for it. Snipe is Snipe has made some legendary sample libraries for the MPC and the machine. So if someone knows sound, and if I trust anyone opinion on sound, I trust his opinion on sound. So there it is. MPC Canvas says, how does the MPC X Black Lion audio mod sound compared to the 4000? That's an actual good question. I think EA Ski has it, so may want to go when EA Ski goes live. You may want to check in with him. I don't know. I don't have the Black Lion mod. I haven't heard it. He seems to. I think he got it. So it probably does what he needs it to do. He has so many other tools to process his sound with. So I'm sure that along with other things, it's probably fine. But yeah, I couldn't tell you, so I wouldn't be able to answer that question. Tester Project says, I'm building back my studio after 15 years, got an MPC X SE, run that, and a Montage M through SSL 6 and Neve master bus processor. So far, so good. That's dope. So the master bus processor, I'm sure, is doing that heavy lift then. I think the SSL cool, but I think that master bus processor is really where you're gonna get like a lot of bang for your buck here. So that's dope. That's a dope setup. Yeah. DJ Cool Breeze, appreciate you. I'm gonna continue to kick the knowledge, fam. I really appreciate you. Thank you for the donation here. Appreciate you. Thank you for supporting the channel. I know you've been around for a while, so I appreciate you. Definitely. Yes, sir. All right. So yeah, man. I don't know. Like I don't want to. I won't belabor this particular stream. This won't be the last stream. Trust me. We just getting started. Like now that I got some more time coming up. At the end of this week, this is my last week in Native Instruments, so I'll be having a lot more time to talk and chop shop and do a lot more stuff. And like I said, I got some more video content that I'm going to be shooting. Like I said, I'm going to wake up some new things about the 4000 that I don't really see any YouTube footage on. I think it'll be interesting to talk about. So stay tuned for that. We're going to keep doing some stuff with the X as well. That's not going anywhere. I'm not going to just go sell the X because it didn't sound like the 4000. That wasn't the point. Like I said, I literally got the X for redundancy. It's going to do that. I'm going to make beats on it too. I've been making beats on it. When I get a few that I really want to share, then I'll share some with you over a live or something as well, just so you can kind of hear where I'm at with it. But I mean, the X is a good machine. So if you have an X, like I told you, I'm not here to knock you for having an X. Like the X is a good machine. Don't get me wrong. It's a good machine with a good workflow. So if you have it, learn it, reference it against other stuff so that you know where it stands, and then utilize where it shines the best. That's all I can say to you. But like, don't make it seem like I'm trying to like knock anybody down for having any of the modern MPCs. I'm not a snob here. I literally have more modern MPCs now than I have classic MPCs, so to speak. And that's if you consider the 4000 a classic. Some people don't consider the 4000 a classic at all. You know, I have the MPC X, the One, and then I have my 4000 back there, and then I have a Akai S3000. The S3000 basically is my answer to having a MPC 3000. So it's an S3000 that has 8 outputs. So I have an array of samplers, and I also have, of course, the SB1200 EA Ski edition. Shout out to EA Ski for getting me set up with that. But so I got some sound options, and I reference them. But I'm not a snob. I bust people head over with Logic. You know what I'm saying? Like I can compete with Logic. Logic. If I had nothing else, I'm a knock them. I'm knocking beats down with Logic all day. Trust me. I don't need an MPC to make any beats, any music that I'm making. I can make it in Logic at this point, and I've been able to do that for quite some time. So it's not, I'm not MPC gang. I'm a music producer. Like I'm not in any gang as far as equipment is concerned. They're all tools. I'll use them all. I like all tools, and I want to learn more about them and learn how I can best utilize them. So it's not about gangs. It's not about me being a snob. It's not about me looking down at any producer for any tool that they choose based upon their needs, their finances, and their workflow at the end of the day. Because I think that's what determines a lot of that. It's like workflow and just your abilities and just where you are as a music producer and what you need at that time. So use what you got, but know what your equipment does, and just like do your homework. I think that's the important part as a music producer. Do your homework, reference, test, figure out what's working and what's not, and then continue to iterate on that. So that's how we get better. I'm gonna take a couple more questions and I'm about to head out. It's getting late over here. I'm no longer on West Coast time. I'm on Central time, so it's getting a little bit later. I got to take care of a few other things here. Mark Robinson, what's good with you, fam? Mark Robinson's always giving me some interesting feedback and thoughts on Twitter. Good person to probably follow on Twitter if you like music production talk. He's always talking about stuff, bringing up some interesting ideas and perspectives. Let's see here. DJ Rush says my 2000 XL's pushing my drums. Dope. Justin Wood says, in a dilemma, looking to stick with machine or move over to the MPC X. That's a dilemma, huh? Well, I like this channel. I don't shill any products. I don't sell any products. As of now, I'm still currently employed by Native Instruments. Been a long time machine user. Still use machine. The question I ask you is machine doing what you need it to do? Because I don't understand what the dilemma is. You haven't really stated what the dilemma is besides maybe gas, gear lust, all of that stuff, right? Like, of course, you see a lot of people getting things and you're curious. So that can give you that gear acquisition syndrome or that gear lust. I don't know what the dilemma is, but if machine is doing what you need it to do technologically, if it's doing it sound-wise, if you're able to get what you need to get out of it musically, then there's no dilemma. You don't have a need or requirement to move over to a different platform. Now, if there's specific features that you don't have on the machine that you need, that has that exists elsewhere, then now you have a real dilemma. Like, do you stay where you're at, or do you go spend the money and get the thing that actually does what you want to do technologically? And I would say if it's holding you back, like completely holding you back from executing your ideas, then you need to move over. You need to move on. If it's not blocking you, if there's workarounds, if there's things you can do that are reasonable to do creatively, then there's nothing wrong with doing things different, out of the ordinary, unconventional. There's nothing wrong with that when you're producing music, because that can help you to discover different things, and like you can uncover new sounds and new opportunities to like just give yourself a creative advantage by doing things that are unconventional with the tools that you're using. So there's nothing wrong with having to work a little bit hard to get or achieve a sound. I think we've kind of gotten to this mindset where like a lot of us don't want to work to achieve our sound. We just want to be able to like just do a whole bunch of stuff really quickly. But sometimes like things take a little bit longer if you want something that's going to like stand out in the end. That's one of the reasons that I'm cool with using the outputs on the MPC as opposed to bouncing audio, because it's a little bit more work, but just the sound and just the way I'm able to manipulate things and what I can achieve from that process is different than what I can achieve from just bouncing things out. It's preventing you absolutely. If it's absolutely preventing you from executing your idea, then yeah, it's time to move over. It's time to move on. Don't let things hold you back that you can potentially solve quickly with money. Like, there's no reason for you to be blocked by something simple when it's like, yeah, there's other options out there. Explore other things and find out what works for you in the end. I think that's important. Don't just stay stuck just because you want to stay stuck and stubborn as well. Like, especially if we're talking about some of these more inexpensive options. Now, the MPC X is not inexpensive at all. So if you're on machine now, and you didn't say which machine you're on, but if you're on machine, if you're on the MK3, it's a big jump to get to the X, like as far as the cost is concerned. So you better know why you want the X for real, because I got the X, but I didn't pay full price for the X at all. I got a really good deal. Like my X was basically like half the price of the X. So at that price is fine. But 2,500 plus tax, yeah, that's a different ball game. It's got to be worth it. It's got to be worth it for you. You got to know why you're doing that in the end, and trust and believe you're not buying the X for the sound of the MPC. So I don't know what the dilemma is, but you gotta let us know if you want like a little bit more insight on that. But I would say for sure, if machine is doing what you need, then there's no reason to move over. Two Papa says you're not part of the Studio One cartel. No, I'm not. I'll leave that to Snipe Young and some of the others. Yeah, Mark Roberts says a process. Yep, that's real. G Minor Cole says I'm all in Logic now. I have to put all the hardware on the shelf. Word. Logic is super capable. I mean, once they went Pro X and added the samplers and all these other features into Logic now, it's very capable. Like you don't need a whole lot these days. And most of the DAWs are super capable. You don't need a whole lot. If you got a modern DAW today, they mostly all do everything that you need them to do at this point. So the whole, like, I work on an MPC, that's a preference. That's a preference at the end of the day. You may just love the tactile thing. Like I said, I know some of you guys, work a day job that's on the computer. The hardware gives you an escape from like looking at the computer. All of that stuff is valid. So I'm not knocking any of that. Like I get it. But like I said, for 2,500, you got to really know why you're doing that, because if it's about really having access to sounds and quick workflow and all that stuff, I don't think you can beat like this new M series of Mac computers at this point. I really don't. So an M series Mac computer with Logic Pro or your favorite DAW, if I'm biased to Logic, but if you like Studio One or Ableton or whatever it is, you just get that, and like, I mean, you're winning. Like you don't need any MPC. Not in my opinion. The MPC then becomes a preference based on other things you might like, the certain ways that it sounds or the way it grooves or just the way the workflow is. That's all preferences, but it's not a requirement here. Ray says, love my MPC 3K drums, knock hard than all my other MPCs. I have an MPC 62, MPC 2000 XL, 1000, 2500, and an X. Word, yeah, 3000 definitely has a sound, no question. Definitely has a sound. Justin Woods, no problem. You got it. Two Papa says dog banging is crazy. It's always been crazy, but it's not ever gonna stop. People always, think that the thing that they use is the best thing because they chose it. And of course they believe that they have good, judgment, and they have good ears and, good taste. Everybody thinks that their thing is the best. Like, some of you guys don't know, I recently moved from the West Coast to Texas, and people talk about their burgers regionally, and you know, in LA, people said, "Oh, In-N-Out's the best burger," and like I'm from LA, but In-N-Out is not the best burger to me. In-N-Out is trash to me, but that's just me. I eat a fat burger before I eat In-N-Out. I'd eat a lot of different burgers before I eat In-N-Out. But anyhow, move to Texas. Texas folks be talking about Whataburger. No, Whataburger is not it either. But you know, folks in Texas are proud of Whataburger. I'm like, hey, you know, to each his own, man. To each his own. No, it's just true. Everybody think they got the best, whatever, you know, regionally or wherever you go. Everybody thinks that the thing that they have is the best thing. Oftentimes without reference. Yeah, Whataburger or Whataburger. It depends on, you know how you want to say it. I've heard that Whataburger is the way to say it and not Whataburger. Right? So that's how I've heard you're supposed to say a Whataburger and not Whataburger. Whatever. It's not a fire burger, that's for sure. It's not a fire burger. So I mean, you know, it could be Whataburger. All it wants, it's not fire. So anyhow, everybody think they got the best thing, and you know, that's their prerogative. Might come back and do another one. Let's see here. K Carter says my MPC 4000 still turns on and does what it do, and no software updates. That's real talk. 20 years later, 22 years later, it still does what it's supposed to do. It turns on. That's what I love about it. You don't have to keep updating it. It's very reliable. That's another reason that I use the old MPCs, is because the reliability factor. Like I don't have to worry about, did some update potentially tank it or change the setting in a way where it doesn't behave or it's erratic now, or if I do an update to get some new features, did it like completely like kill the reliability that I used to have? Don't have to worry about that with the old MPCs for sure, because I turn it on as long as the screen still works and the power is still working. No problem. It's gonna be reliable and it's gonna do what I need it to do every time. And I can't even say that about the computer all the time. Sometimes the computer, like, you might turn it back on and something happens. Some small thing may have updated on its own. You got to turn off all the auto updates and you got to do all these things to preserve it in the state, because anything can like change the behaviors of a computer. So I get that as well. But sometimes the way that you guys, not all of you, but some of you guys like to use your MPC, I wonder if, you know, you just kind of running away from the concept of a computer. Because if it's always about an update, if you're always looking for, oh, I need this new update, I want to update, then it's like, you can do that on the computer too and risk whatever stability you have on the old operating system. Like, that happens all the time. And when people do these updates on these new OS for MPC, machine, whatever, like, there's always a 0.1 that has to come. There's always a new update that has to come. So, yeah. Let's see here. Bang Mateo says, I still use the ASR X Pro for my drums and bass line. Do the rest of Ableton. Dope. Jaso, yeah, I moved to Texas, bro. I'm in Houston now. Tupapa says, In-N-Out is not the best burger. Word. I was born in East LA. It's absolutely not the best burger. I mean, I feel like people that, to be honest, I feel like people that visit LA may have just bought into the hype and say like, oh, In-N-Out's so good. In-N-Out is, come on, guys. In-N-Out is not it at all. In-N-Out is trash. I'm sorry. In-N-Out is trash. The burgers are okay, but the fries are trash at In-N-Out for sure. The burgers are just whatever. Like, the burgers are not impressive. I'll eat the habit before I eat In-N-Out. Yeah, if you ever had In-N-Out fries, you know, like, what in the world are they doing? What in the world are they doing? But people love it. So to each his own, man. Like, you know, like taste is, you know, taste is personal at the end of the day, and it has to do with your frame of reference. Like, you know, I ain't gonna say no more about that because somebody might get mad. I might say something out of pocket, so I'm not gonna say it. But you know, taste is personal. Let's see here. Bang Mattel says Insonic ASR X Pro sounds better than any MPCs in my opinion. It definitely has a different sound. It's definitely its own thing. So I get what you mean. I've used the ASR X Pro. It has a deep, interesting sound. Kodak Provision says I refuse to update my MPC X. I just need it to do what I need only. Yeah, I mean, that's how you can get caught up, like always doing the updates, and then all of a sudden stuff gets tanked, and then it doesn't work the way it was working when you bought it, and now you're trying to like recover things. That's a nightmare. Like, that's a nightmare. I hate that. Byron Brand says I have a S2400. What you think about the sound? It sounds good to me. I haven't used it. I've heard good things about it, but I haven't used it. So I can't really comment on it. Like I said, I have a SP1200. I think it sounds really interesting. I think it's a dope sound for certain things. It doesn't work for me for everything. Let me not get it twisted right now. Like, the SP1200 definitely doesn't work for everything that I'm doing at all. I actually don't find a ton of use cases on a day-to-day for me on the SP1200 because I just don't make a lot of, like, first of all, I'm not a boom bap producer per se. I don't make a whole bunch of boom bap stuff. So then I have to think about it creatively, like, do I want this sound to sound like the SP1200 for like a artistic or creative reason? And then if I do, then I'll use the SP1200 sound. But like, I don't typically just go for the SP1200 just because it's not part of like the genres, or, you know, it's in my lexicon. I definitely know SP1200 music. I love, you know, Black Moon, Pete Rock, you know, old DJ Premier. Listen, old DJ Quick and old Battle Cat, all that stuff, like, they were using SP1200s. I love I love those eras of music, but just, you know, where I'm at, I don't use it all the time. I have to have a very specific mission to use a SP1200. So like a S2400, I don't know. Like like I said, I haven't used it, but it wouldn't be something that I would pull for all the time. But if you like it, then keep using it. That's what I would say. Yeah, in and out, garbage. What's your favorite burger spot? All true. I mean, listen, my favorite burger spot is the burgers you make at the house. But outside of that, like fast food burgers, I don't have a favorite, but I could say like a couple that are cool just for the price. The Habit is cool. It's cool. It's not the best burger ever. It's cool. I also think Culver's is cool. We didn't really have Culver's in LA, but definitely got Culver's out in Houston. Culver's is cool. I like that for what it's worth. It's a very inexpensive. Culver's is definitely better than In-N-Out. Let me just preface that. Like, Culver's is definitely better than In-N-Out. So yeah, those are some of the ones, like cheaper burgers. Then, you know, obviously in Houston we got Trail Burger out here. I haven't actually had Trail Burger, so I don't know. That's, you know, Bun B's joint. Pause. Yeah. I don't know. Anyhow, like burgers, I mean, you know, you can get burgers anywhere. It's just, I think some burgers are overrated. I'm gonna take a couple more of these. We're almost to the end of this stream here, so I'm gonna take a couple more of these and then we'll head out. Room at the top, studio, my 3K 2XL and the little 500 when I'm on the move or away from main studio currently works for me. I love the sound of all three. I wish I had gas for a new MPC. Word. Mac Avery says, yeah, fries suck, overcooked and dry. Yep. Terrible fries, terrible fries. Two Papa says, Ayo, his question, how do you compare the Mexican food in Houston to LA? Okay, we did this already. We did this already. We're not doing this again. Houston don't have the Mexican food. Nah. Houston don't have the Mexican food. Houston got a lot of Tex-Mex food, but it doesn't have the Baja or Tijuana style Mexican food that I'm used to from California. Houston does not have it. So yeah, I'm gonna just leave it there. Houston does not have Mexican food. Houston definitely has Cajun food and Creole food, but Mexican, no. Couple more questions here. Let's see. Every drum sampler has its own sound. Like you said, it's exactly taste, very subjective to each producer's ear. Yep, exactly. Mac Avery says opinion on Novation Bass Station 2 for bass sounds. Now you fancy the SC stuff, but I'm on a budget. Now get the Novation Bass Station. Don't think twice about it. Just get that one. I think that's a sleeper. A lot of people slept on that one, maybe because the price, maybe it was the timing, but Bass Station, no brainer. Get it. I don't even have to say too much more about that. Get that one. Yeah, get that one. Let's see here. Says, what would you recommend for a great bass instrument? I use Trillion. Yeah, I mean, depends on your price. Bass Station 2 is a good one. Don't sleep on it. Bass Station 2 is a really good one. Obviously, as someone already mentioned, I love Studio Electronics stuff. Studio Electronics SE1, SE1X, ATC1, ATCX, amazing bass sounds. Moog stuff, I think you just got to be careful with that. I think the Sub 37's got a pretty good reputation. I haven't used that, so I can't speak to it. I definitely can speak to the Voyager. I love the Voyager as well. But yeah, my picks, Bass Station 2, SE1, SE1X, ATC1, ATC1X. Those are my favorites still to this day. And I've played with quite a bit of analog synthesizers and whatnot. Those are the ones still for me. Let's see here. Justin Wood says, I'm a blind producer. Oh, I got you. Machine was great because of the tactile function, hands-on MPC scenes now to help me achieve more on the effects side with things that people want from my beats. If the MPC is doing more of what you need, then yeah, go for it. I didn't realize you were a blind producer, so that creates some additional things that you may have to consider in the end, right? So I think that being said, if feature-wise the MPC has more of the stuff that you need as far as effects and other things, then just go for it. Don't even think twice about it, because I think for your particular purposes, you may not have as much bandwidth to do so much unconventional things in the studio to make it work. So get what has the feature set that you need. That's what I would say. Lava Lamp Zone, what's good with you, bro? Have you ever run Logic as your sound module for your MPC 4000? Man, yeah, of course. I had templates on sale for on my website for that, bro. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. K Carter, appreciate you, man. K Carter, shout out to K Carter, man. Thank you so much for all the support during this stream, man. You've been holding it down. I appreciate you. If you had to pick one MPC to do a client's album on, which one would you pick? I'm gonna pick the 4000. because I know that one. I know what I expect to get out of that, and I can work really quickly, and I'm not going to question the sound on it. I'm not going to question what I'm getting. So I think that's the important part when you're trying to work quickly and work confidently. You should know the sound, and you should know what you're expecting to get out of the machine that you're choosing. It's about intentionality in the end, right? So if I had a client that I needed to work with, and I had to choose one, I'm gonna choose that one because I know what sound I'm gonna get out of it. Now, will I use it with Logic? Of course, I'm gonna use it with Logic, and I'm gonna do as much stuff as I can in Logic as well to keep it simple so that I can be flexible. But the MPC part, I'm choosing the 4000. That's what I know. That's the sound that I know the best. That's the one I'm most confident with, and that's the one that I can get the results that are most reliable with. So that's what I'm picking. That's a good question. I appreciate that question. A couple more things in here. I'll go back to Lava Lamp real quick. Figured I can use my Machine MK3 as a MIDI interface. Thoughts? Okay, yeah. Definitely, I've used the 4000 with the with Logic. There's actually videos on my YouTube channel actually of me using the MPC Renaissance with Logic. I don't know if any of you guys are interested in seeing me do like MPC 4000 with Logic as a sound module. Let me know. I can maybe do some video content like that again. I hadn't done that in quite some time, but it works. And then, yeah, using the Machine MK3 as the MIDI interface definitely works. I used to use the Machine as a MIDI interface for several different things. So it works. It's stable, and it's a good way. Yeah, I think it's definitely a valid way to work. All right, couple more things here. Josso says San Antonio. Okay, for the Mexican food. I see. Don Gordy says, do I like the SE2 with Roland? I like the concept of it. I just didn't like I didn't like the IO and the form factor, but I think I wish they didn't go in such a like low tier like consumer route. I think it has a big sound, but I just wish they would have done it like more professionally. And I think it would be a modern classic if they did that. But yeah, they just kind of cheaped it out to make it more affordable. So that's unfortunate. DJ65, appreciate you. Let me answer this question. I know you spoke about bass. I was wondering what bass VST would you recommend? I know a lot of people like Trillion. I don't really use a lot of like Spectrasonic stuff, but yeah, Trillion has like some of the sample sets from like the ATC One and the SE One. So if you want something that already has that stuff built in, that is an option. Like it definitely has those sounds in there. Do they sound exactly like the SE1 and ATC One? No, but it has some of that in there. I actually tend to use like for bass sound, like you'd be surprised. I actually use a lot of sounds from Chord Gadget. There's a module called I think it's called Dublin. I think that's what it is. Let me see. Like I might have a second before I leave. Maybe I can pull up a session or something that has Dublin in it. Let me see real quick. Maybe we can do this. This might be one of the last questions, but let me see something. I just pull it up here. Let's see. Let's go there. Oh, actually, no. Let's go here. Boom. Yeah, let's go there. I think this one has it. All right, y'all gonna get like a little sneak peek of something that I'm working on actually. Should I share my screen? Yeah, maybe I should just share my screen here. Let me see. Here we go. Cool, it's already set up. All right, so let me see. Is the audio right though? Yes, the audio's right. Cool. So yeah, this is a track in Logic, mainly battery, a lot of core gadget stuff. Dublin is the one that I was talking about. So let me run it from the top here, just so you can kind of get an idea of the bass. So this is the bass here. Yeah. So I like this one. This one is a really good bass marker for me. And this is all Logic here. This ain't like, you know, this ain't no MPC. It's just battery and just virtual instruments. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I love that one for bass synth. That's a dope one. Yeah. So yeah, that's Dublin. I like that one. That's a dope one. That's definitely a dope one. Yeah. Appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all. K Carter, appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all the support. Definitely appreciate it, fam. How are you syncing Logic Pro with the MPC for tracking out? I definitely got some videos on my site, but basically these days I tend to use just like an audio sync. So what I'll do is like use the count in on the MPC and record the count in for every track. And then that way I have a reference point, and then I synchronize the track to the clicks. Sounds archaic or whatever, but it works. It works, and it's very stable and predictable. So yeah. All right, I've just hit the 2-hour point, y'all. Man, I appreciate rocking with y'all as always. It's amazing. Like, it's always good to like chop it up with you guys. I hope I was able to clear up some of the stuff that I'm doing. Like I said, I don't have any ill will or ill feelings towards anybody as far as what they want to use. Use what you want to use. Make the music that you want to make. At the end of the day, you know, your workflow is unique to you. It's unique to what you're trying to accomplish as a musician. So I don't make any of my content to try to make anyone feel bad about what they use. I'm just sharing information and thoughts, and we're having a discussion. So don't take offense. Hopefully we can just continue the conversations, continue to do this stuff, and let's keep it going. I got some more content for you guys, so let's stay, you know, just stay tuned in. I appreciate all of y'all. Y'all been like super dope during this particular stream. I appreciate you. Much appreciated, K Carter. K Carter held it down. I really appreciate you, fam. This won't be the last time we do a stream like this. We're gonna continue to like do these streams. Like I said, I got more time, so I'm ready to amp it up. You know, you're gonna see more content from me than you've seen in forever from me. So get ready. If you don't like comparisons, I don't know what to tell you. We're gonna do comparisons. We're gonna do a lot of stuff on here. It's not just gonna be comparisons. We're gonna talk about other different workflows and ideas, but comparisons is part of the game. Music producers should be comparing their sound to other sounds to reference. That's just a part of the game. So I appreciate y'all. Thank you so much for your input on everything. And we're gonna get it again. We're gonna get it in again. It's gonna be something. I got some more stuff coming later this week. So yeah, man, I'm gonna just tell y'all until next time, peace and God bless y'all.